The morning sun reflected off the glass walls of Han Motors, the most expensive car dealership in New Seoul. Lee Jin-woo stood at his usual spot near the main desk, fixing his black tie. As the manager of the dealership, he took pride in how clean and organized everything looked. The showroom displayed 5 quantum-powered cars. Each car cost more than what most people earned in 10 years. Their sleek bodies gleamed under the bright lights, and their quantum engines hummed softly. Jin-woo smiled as he watched his team prepare for another busy day. At exactly 9:00 a.m., the glass doors slid open. A tall man walked in wearing a bright golden suit that hurt the eyes. He had rings on every finger and a watch that glowed with different colors. This was Big Shaq, and everyone in the galaxy knew about him. He was famous for making crazy deals and spending huge amounts of money. "I want your best car," Big Shaq announced loudly. His voice echoed through the showroom. "The most expensive one you've got. And I want to test drive it right now." Jin-woo walked forward with a polite smile. "Good morning, sir. Welcome to Han Motors. I'm Lee Jin-woo, the manager. We would be happy to show you our vehicles." Big Shaq barely looked at Jin-woo. Instead, he walked straight to the newest model, the Quantum X9000. It was worth 5 million credits. The car's paint changed color as you walked around it, and its doors opened upward like wings. "This one. I'll take it for a spin," Big Shaq said, reaching for the door handle. Jin-woo stepped between Big Shaq and the car. "Sir, I apologize, but we need to see some documents first. It's our policy. We need your driver's license, proof of insurance, and... Do you know who I am?" Big Shaq turned to face Jin-woo. His face was red with anger. "I could buy this whole dealership if I wanted to." "Yes, sir, I know who you are," Jin-woo said calmly. "But rules are rules. Everyone must follow them, even you." The other customers in the showroom stopped to watch. Some pulled out their phones to record what was happening. Big Shaq's face got even redder. "Listen here, you little man," Big Shaq growled, poking Jin-woo's chest with his finger. "I've bought ships bigger than this building. I don't need papers. I don't need permission. I want this car, and I want to drive it now." Jin-woo didn't move. He stood straight and looked Big Shaq in the eyes. "Sir, I must ask you to stop touching me. If you want to test drive any car here, you need to show the proper documents. If you don't have them, I cannot help you." "This is ridiculous," Big Shaq shouted. He pulled out a credit card made of solid gold. "Here's my card. Just charge whatever you want. Let me drive the car." Jin-woo shook his head. "Money is not the issue, sir. Safety and legal requirements are. Without the proper documents, no one can test drive our vehicles. Not even you." The air in the showroom felt heavy. Everyone watched to see what would happen next. Big Shaq's hands were shaking with rage. Jin-woo stayed calm, even though inside his heart was beating fast. Little did either of them know that this moment would change the future of Han Motors forever. But for now, they stood facing each other, neither willing to back down, while the quantum engines hummed quietly in the background. Big Shaq looked around the showroom, his golden suit reflecting in the polished floors. His eyes landed on Kim Do-hyun, a young sales associate who was watching the scene from behind her desk. A sly smile spread across his face. "You there, young lady," Big Shaq called out, walking away from Jin-woo. "Let's make a deal." Do-hyun stood up straight, smoothing her blue company uniform. She glanced nervously at Jin-woo before answering. "How can I help you, sir?" Big Shaq reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver card. 10,000 credits, just for you. All you have to do is give me the keys to that car. He nodded toward the Quantum X9000. The showroom fell silent. Even the quantum engines seemed to hum more quietly. Do-hyun's eyes widened at the amount. It was more than she made in 3 months. I can't do that, sir," Do-hyun said firmly, pushing the card back toward Big Shaq. "Manager Lee is right. We need proper documents first. Big Shaq's face turned dark. 20,000 credits, he said loudly, making sure everyone could hear. That's my final offer. The answer is still no, Da-hyun replied, her voice stronger now. Please stop trying to brag me. At that moment, Park Mayra walked into the showroom. She owned the biggest shipping company in Seoul, and everyone knew her face from business news. She stopped and watched the scene with interest. This is outrageous, Big Shaq shouted, throwing his hands up. First, this stubborn manager, and now a salesgirl who thinks she's too good for my money. Do you know I could buy and sell this whole place? Jin-woo walked over quickly. Sir, you just tried to bribe my employee. I must ask you to leave the premises now. Leave? Lee-hee? Big Shaq's voice boomed through the showroom. I'm not going anywhere until I drive that car. Park Mayray stepped forward, her expensive black suit making her look even more powerful. I've seen enough, she said clearly. I was planning to buy 3 cars today, but now I'm not so sure. I don't feel comfortable doing business where people throw money around to break rules. Big Shaq spun around to face her. This is none of your business, lady. Actually, it is, Mayray replied calmly. I'm Park Mayray, CEO of Star Bridge Shipping, and I'm impressed by how this dealership handles pressure. She turned to Jin-woo and smiled. Your team shows great integrity, managerly. Jin-woo bowed slightly. Thank you, Ms. Park. We simply follow our policies. Big Shaq's face turned purple with rage. He stomped toward the restricted area where they kept the prototype vehicles. Fine. If you won't let me test drive that car, I'll try one of these instead. Sir, stop. Jin-woo called out. That area is restricted. Security will be here any second. But Big Shaq didn't listen. He reached for the door handle of the restricted area, not knowing that his next action would start a chain of events that would change everything. Behind him, Jin-woo pressed the silent alarm button, while Park Mi-rae pulled out her phone to record what was happening. The tension in the showroom reached its breaking point. No one knew it yet, but the next few moments would become the most watched video in the galaxy that year. The security door made a loud beeping noise as Big Shaq tried to force it open. Red warning lights started flashing across the showroom. Behind the door sat 3 prototype vehicles worth billions of credits, their shapes hidden under special covers. Step away from that door right now, Jin-woo ordered. His voice was firm and clear. You are trespassing in a restricted area. Big Shaq ignored him. He pulled harder on the door handle, making the metal groan. Regional manager, get me your regional manager, he shouted, his face now deep purple with anger. I'll have your job for this. Choi Yuna, the head of security, rushed into the showroom with 2 guards. She was small but moved like a trained fighter. Sir, this is your final warning. Step away from the restricted area. Park Mi-rae was still recording everything on her phone. Da-hyun had moved all the other customers to a safe distance. The quantum engines in the showroom cars hummed louder, as if they could sense the tension. Nobody tells me what to do, Big Shaq screamed. He pulled out a small device from his pocket and pointed it at the security door. This universal key opens any lock in the galaxy. Let's see how restricted this area really is. Jin-woo moved fast. He grabbed Big Shaq's arm before he could use the device. That's enough. Big Shaq spun around and swung his fist at Jin-woo's face, but Jin-woo was ready. He stepped aside, and Big Shaq's punch hit only air. The momentum made Big Shaq stumble forward. You dare touch me, Big Shaq roared. He charged at Jin-woo like an angry bull. Jin-woo had learned self-defense during his military service. He moved calmly, redirecting Big Shaq's charge. The large man crashed into an empty display stand. Security, arrest this man, Yuna commanded. But before her guards could move, Big Shaq jumped up and ran straight for the prototype area again. This time, Jinwoo had no choice. As Big Shaq reached for the security panel with his universal key, Jinwoo stepped in. He blocked Big Shaq's arm, and using the man's own momentum, pushed him away from the door. Big Shaq lost his balance and fell hard on the polished floor. His golden suit was now wrinkled and dirty. The universal key slid across the floor, stopping at Park Myre's feet. You hit me," Big Shaq said in disbelief, holding his shoulder. "Do you know what happens to people who hit me?" Jinwoo stood his ground. "You attempted to break into a restricted area and try to assault me. The police are already on their way." The security guards moved in, but Big Shaq wasn't finished. He got up and pulled out a phone. "One call. That's all it takes. One call, and I'll destroy this whole company. We have everything on video." Park Myre spoke up, holding up her phone. "Including your attempted break-in and assault. I've already sent copies to my lawyers." Big Shaq looked around. Everyone was watching him. The mighty dealership lights made his sweaty face shine. His expensive suit was ruined. His reputation was crumbling in front of his eyes. Then he did something that surprised everyone. He started laughing. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind of laugh that made people nervous. "Oh, you'll all see," he said quietly, straightening his crooked tie. "You have no idea what you've started today. No idea at all." With that, Big Shaq turned and walked toward the exit. But at the door, he stopped and looked back at Jinwoo. "Remember this moment," he said. "Everything that happens next is because you wouldn't let me drive a simple car." The glass doors closed behind him. The showroom was quiet except for the soft hum of quantum engines. Nobody knew it then, but Big Shaq's words would turn out to be true, just not in the way anyone expected. The next morning, Jinwoo sat in his office watching the holographic news. His calm face from yesterday had turned serious. The incident with Big Shaq was playing on every major news channel across the galaxy. "Breaking news from Earth," the reporter said. "Famous business mogul Big Shaq involved in a physical altercation at Han Motors in New Seoul. Our sources say the incident started over a test drive denial." The holographic display showed multiple angles of the confrontation. The dealership's advanced security systems had captured everything in perfect detail. Jinwoo watched as his past self moved with precise control, defending against Big Shaq's attacks. Park Myre's video had gone viral on the galactic network. It already had over 50 million views. Comments flooded in from across the stars. Finally, someone stands up to Big Shaq. That manager has real courage. Best self-defense moves I've seen in a luxury showroom. Jinwoo's communication device buzzed. It was a message from the company president. "Meeting in 1 hour. Bring all documentation of the incident." Just then, Da-hyun knocked on his office door. "Manager Lee, you should see this." She projected another news feed into the air. Big Shaq was giving an interview from his orbital mansion. He looked completely different from yesterday. His golden suit was perfectly pressed again. His face showed no sign of yesterday's rage. "It was an unfortunate misunderstanding," Big Shaq said smoothly. "Han Motors clearly needs better customer service training. Their treatment of potential buyers is, shall we say, concerning." Jinwoo's device buzzed again. 3 major clients had canceled their orders. The news was affecting business already. Choi Yuna entered the office next, carrying security reports. "Sir, we've detected unusual activity in our computer systems since this morning. Someone is trying to access our financial records." "Have they succeeded?" Jinwoo asked, straightening his tie. "No, our quantum encryption is holding. But these are professional hackers. They know what they're doing." The office door opened again. This time, it was Park Myre. She walked in wearing an elegant business suit, looking as confident as ever. "I hope I'm not interrupting," she said. "But I thought you should know something. My shipping company just received a strange offer. A competitor offered to handle all our vehicle transport contracts at half the normal price, but only if we stopped doing business with Han Motors." Jinwoo stood up and looked out his office window at the showroom below. The quantum cars still gleamed under the lights. Everything looked normal, but he knew it wasn't. "He's trying to isolate us," Jinwoo said quietly. "Cut off our customers, damage our reputation, and hack our systems. All because we followed the rules." "What do we do?" Da-hyun asked, worry clear in her voice. Jinwoo turned to face his team. "We do what we always do. We stand our ground. We follow our principles. And we trust that doing the right thing will work out in the end." What Jinwoo didn't know was that someone else was watching all of this very carefully. Someone who had been looking for exactly this kind of integrity. But for now, the dealership had to weather the storm that Big Shaq had created. "The company president is waiting," Jinwoo said, picking up his tablet. "Let's show him that we did everything by the book. The truth is on our side." As they left the office, the quantum engines in the showroom hummed steadily, their sound as constant as Jinwoo's determination to stand by his principles, no matter the cost. 3 months passed since the incident with Big Shaq. The famous businessman had completely disappeared from public view. No interviews, no social media posts, no business deals. It was as if he had vanished into the depths of space. Jinwoo sat in the main conference room at Han Motors, looking at the sales figures on his tablet. The numbers were not good. Many wealthy customers had stopped coming to the dealership. The viral video had made some people nervous about shopping there. "Another difficult month," said Mr. Han, the company president. His usual confident smile was gone. "Our competitors are spreading rumors that we treat customers poorly. They keep showing that video of Big Shaq. But we did nothing wrong," Jinwoo said firmly. "We followed our security protocols. Sometimes doing the right thing has a price," Mr. Han replied, looking tired. "And speaking of price, I have concerning news. Someone is buying large amounts of Han Motors stock." Jinwoo looked up from his tablet. "Who?" "We don't know. They're using different companies to hide their identity. But they've already bought 15% of our shares." Just then, Choi Yuna rushed into the conference room. Her face was serious. "Sir, we have a problem. A big problem." She connected her device to the room's holographic projector. A complex web of company names and financial transactions appeared in the air. "I've been investigating the stock purchases," Yuna explained. "Look at these companies: Galaxy Investments, Star Route Trading, Quantum Future Corporation. They all appeared 3 months ago, right after Big Shaq left," Jinwoo said quietly. "Exactly. And there's more. These companies are all connected to a larger corporation called Omega Holdings. They're trying to buy enough shares to take control of Han Motors." Mr. Han stood up suddenly. "A hostile takeover? But who has that kind of money?" The answer hit Jinwoo like a quantum surge. Big Shaq. This was his plan all along. He's trying to take over the company. "No," Yuna shook her head. "That's what I thought at first. But look at this." She zoomed in on one part of the hologram. "Big Shaq's company is losing money too. Someone is buying his shares as well. The same mysterious buyer is targeting both companies." The room fell silent. Outside, the sun was setting over New Seoul, casting long shadows through the windows. The quantum engines in the showroom below hummed softly, their sound now somehow comforting in this moment of uncertainty. "What do we do?" Mr. Han asked, looking older than his years. Jinwoo stood up and walked to the window. He watched as the city's lights began to turn on, creating a sea of colors in the growing darkness. "We keep doing what we've always done," he said. "We run our business with honesty and integrity. Whoever is buying our shares, whatever their plan is, they can't take that away from us." What Jinwoo didn't know was that high above the city in a hidden orbital office, someone was watching Han Motors very carefully. Someone who had spent 3 months and billions of credits setting up the most elaborate corporate test in galactic history. And soon, very soon, they would reveal themselves. The evening lights of New Seoul reflected off the glass walls of Han Motors as Choi Yuno worked late in her security office. For weeks, she had been studying data about the mysterious company buying their shares. Tonight, something finally made sense. Manager Lee, she called Jinwoo on the communication device. "I found something important. Please come to my office immediately." Jinwoo arrived 5 minutes later. His tie was loose after a long day of meetings about the company's future. "What did you discover?" Yuma displayed a complex diagram on her holographic screen. "Look at these shipping records. Every company trying to buy Han Motors shares has received deliveries from the same place, Quantum Dynamics Corporation. The engine manufacturer." Jinwoo leaned closer to the screen. "Why would they be involved?" "That's what I wondered," Yuma continued. "So I investigated Quantum Dynamics. 3 months ago, they appointed a new CEO, someone who worked in secret, someone whose name was never announced." Jinwoo's eyes widened. Around the same time, Big Shaq disappeared. "Exactly. But here's the interesting part." Yuna pulled up another document. "Quantum Dynamics makes the best quantum engines in the galaxy. They're looking for a company to exclusively sell their new advanced model, a model that would revolutionize space travel." The pieces started falling into place in Jinwoo's mind. The prototype area. Big Shaq wasn't trying to steal our cars that day. He was testing our security. "Yes," Yuma nodded. "And not just security. He was testing our integrity, how we handle pressure, whether we could be bribed or threatened." Just then, Jinwoo's device buzzed with an urgent message. It was from Park Mayray. "Turn on the financial news now," it said. Yuna quickly switched to the news channel. The headline made them both freeze. "Thor A. King, Big Shaq, revealed as new CEO of Quantum Dynamics." The camera showed Big Shaq standing at a podium. He looked different now, more serious, wearing a simple black suit instead of his usual golden one. 3 months ago, Big Shaq spoke to the cameras. "I began a search for the right partner to sell our revolutionary new quantum engine. We needed a company with perfect integrity, a company that couldn't be bribed or bullied, a company that would protect our technology at all costs." Jinwoo and Yuna watched in silence as Big Shaq continued. "I personally tested dozens of dealerships across the galaxy. I offered bribes. I tried to break into restricted areas. I threatened their employees. Only one company stood firm. Only one manager refused to bend the rules, even when faced with losing his job." The screen showed clips from the confrontation at Han Motors. But this time, they were being presented differently, not as a scandal, but as a triumph of integrity. "What happens next?" Yuna asked quietly. Jinwoo straightened his tie, his face showing no emotion. "We wait. Whatever Big Shaq's plan is, we keep doing our job the right way." As they spoke, a private spacecraft was already descending toward Han Motors. Inside sat Big Shaq, holding a contract that would change the future of both companies forever. But this time, he had all the proper documentation. The private spacecraft landed smoothly on Han Motors' rooftop landing pad. The evening sky of New Seoul glowed with the lights of floating advertisements and passing vehicles. Jinwoo, Mr. Han, and the entire management team waited as the ship's door opened. Big Shaq stepped out, followed by a team of executives in dark suits. This time, he walked differently, not with arrogance, but with purpose. He carried a sleek black briefcase in his hand. "Manager Lee," Big Shaq said, extending his hand. "We meet again. This time, I have all the proper documentation." A small smile played on his lips. Jinwoo shook his hand firmly. "Welcome to Han Motors, Mr. CEO." They moved to the main conference room. Through its glass walls, they could see the showroom below where the incident had happened 3 months ago. The quantum engines hummed softly in the background. "Ladies and gentlemen," Big Shaq began, opening his briefcase. "What you're about to see will change the future of space travel." He placed a small device on the table. It looked like a normal quantum engine core, but smaller. "This is the QDAX prototype," he explained. "It uses half the fuel of current engines, but produces triple the power. It can make any vehicle travel twice as fast through space. And it's completely safe." Mr. Han leaned forward. "Why show this to us?" "Because," Big Shaq smiled, "quantum dynamics needs a partner we can trust completely. Someone who will protect our technology. Someone who won't be tempted by bribes or threats from our competitors." He pressed a button on his device. A holographic contract appeared in the air. "We want Han Motors to be our exclusive dealer in the entire galaxy. No other company will be allowed to sell vehicles with our new engines. In return, we'll buy 30% of your company's shares, enough to protect you from any hostile takeover, but not enough to control you." The room fell silent. The offer was worth trillions of credits. "The incident 3 months ago," Jinwoo said slowly. "It was a test. The most expensive and elaborate corporate integrity test in history." Big Shaq nodded. "We tested 50 major dealerships across the galaxy. Most of them failed within minutes. Some took bribes. Others gave in to threats. A few even tried to steal our prototype plans when we leaked fake information to them." He turned to face Jinwoo directly. "But you, Manager Lee, you stood firm. You protected your restricted area even when you didn't know what was in it. You refused a bribe that could have made you rich. You maintained your integrity even when it cost you business." "That's just doing our job," Jinwoo replied simply. "Exactly." Big Shaq's voice filled the room. "That's exactly what we wanted to hear. Your company doesn't just talk about integrity. You live it. That's why we need you as our partner." The contract glowed in the air between them, waiting for signatures. Outside, the sun had set completely, and New Seoul's night lights painted the sky in brilliant colors. The future of both companies hung in this moment, all because one manager had refused to break the rules for a test drive. 1 year had passed since the partnership between Han Motors and Quantum Dynamics began. The Han Motors showroom looked very different now. Special quantum barriers protected the new vehicles equipped with QDX engines. Customers from across the galaxy came to see these amazing machines. Jinwoo stood in his new office on the top floor. As Global Operations Director, he now oversaw Han Motors' expansion to 50 other planets, but he still kept his old manager's desk in the corner to remind him of where everything started. "The sales reports are in," Da-hyun said, entering the office. She now managed the New Seoul branch. "We've sold more cars this month than we used to sell in a whole year." Jinwoo nodded, looking out at the busy showroom below. "And how many people tried to bribe you this month?" "Only 3, Da-hyun laughed. "They all left disappointed. Our reputation for integrity is too well known now." The door opened again, and Big Shaq walked in. He wore a simple blue suit these days, having given up his golden clothes. The famous businessman had changed as much as Han Motors had. "Jinwoo, my friend," Big Shaq said warmly. "Still working late, I see." "Old habits die hard," Jinwoo replied with a small smile. "What brings you here?" "The galactic business news." Big Shaq projected a hologram showing the latest headlines. Han Motors Quantum Dynamics Partnership named most successful corporate merger of the decade. The three of them watched as the news showed clips from the past year. The launch of the first QDX-powered vehicles, the opening of new dealerships across the galaxy, the long lines of customers waiting to buy their cars. "You know," Big Shaq said thoughtfully, "that punch you almost gave me was the best thing that ever happened to both our companies." "I never actually hit you," Jinwoo corrected him. Details. Big Shaq waved his hand. "The point is, that day taught me something important. True success comes from integrity, not from throwing money around or making threats." Just then, Choi Yuna entered with an urgent message. "Sir, we have a situation. A customer is demanding to test drive the new QDX prototype without proper documentation. She says she's the queen of the Centauri system." Jinwoo and Big Shaq looked at each other. Then they both started laughing. "Some things never change," Jinwoo said, straightening his tie. "Please tell Her Majesty that we'll be happy to help her once she provides the correct documents." "Just like old times," Big Shaq grinned. "Should I go down and make a scene? For old time's sake." "Better not," Jinwoo smiled. "We have a reputation to maintain now." As they looked out over the showroom, the quantum engines hummed with their new, more powerful sound. The future stretched out before them, bright with possibility. Han Motors had become the most trusted name in the galaxy, all because one manager had refused to break the rules. And somewhere in the restricted area, under the highest security, sat the next generation of QDX engines, waiting for their time to change the galaxy once again. But this time, everyone knew the rules. No test drives without proper documentation. Not even for Big Shaq himself.